every customer experience, every customer interaction, everything that we do for the customer is paramount. Everything else comes second. The customer experience is number one. You know what I mean? I will take and literally get in my truck and drive 7 hours today if I need to go. If I've got somebody who's in dire state, they've got a book they need. Like I'm gonna make it happen. And we've built a culture of that at Third Eye. And our people that are here with us, like, that's from when you start here. That's the thing that we build in. Like, it's just, you're here for the customer, and that's what matters the most. We're excited about the customer. We're excited about them, because comics is escapism. We're their escape. And that's the thing. Everybody walks into a comic shop feeling magical. And if we don't live up to that magic that they're envisioning when they, Google us and they say, I'm going to the comic shop, then we're not doing a good job.
Hi, my name is Adam Freeman. This is Comic Industry Insiders, a weekly podcast where we talk to the movers and shakers of the comic book industry and try and dig into their lives and their habits to see what we can pull out for your business or career in comics. This week, our guest is Steve Anderson. Oh, that's you. But before I get into it, let me take you back to 2008 and make it as personal as I can.
Okay.
That year, the comic shop that I co-owned and ran won the Eisner Spirit of Retail Award, and we came home to a financial crisis that by the end of that year had me thinking about closing the shop and eventually led to my moving to publishing. At the same time, Steve here and his partner Trish Rabbit opened their first location of Third Eye, and this is the model for what makes Steve Anderson Steve Anderson. He's like the hardcore punk version of Mr. Potter from It's a Wonderful Life. He's always selling when others are buying and buying when others are selling. And that has led to growth. In the 26 years since Third Eye Comics, 3 locations, along with their sister stores, Third Eye Games and Hobbies and Third Eye Buys, have become the biggest some of the biggest retailers in the industry. And Steve has become one of the most sought after retailer opinions for his ability to see around corners and forecast trends. I'm thrilled to finally bring Steve's brand of wisdom to our channel and can't wait to share it with you. Steve, what's up, buddy?
Hey, man. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you for coming. I appreciate you guys making the time. I hear you're doing your monthly order pack right now, huh?
Yeah. Lunar just dropped, so we're
I got you.
working on DC and Image and cooking up all the good stuff about what's coming out in September.
What is the hit for in September, do you think?
The Moon is Following Us, I think, is going to be the book.
The Moon is Following Us.
Yeah, it's the new Daniel Warren Johnson, Riley Rossmo book from Image, and it looks fire. It looks super dope.
I can always count on you for that.
Yeah.
When looking back on how to begin this conversation, I was looking back over some of our previous interviews, and one of my favorite retailer interviews was a crew from Goblin Comics in Chicago. Mm-hmm. And one of their owners, River Hardrick, made a statement, and I'm just going to paraphrase. She said, comics should be, and she's talking about monthly comics, not like graphic novels or manga. Comics should be more like vinyl, and instead they're treated like cassettes, meaning that, vinyl records have become very sought after, very collectible, still have maintained value despite the fact that the world seems to have moved on from that medium as far as technologically speaking. But cassettes are still, even though they're basically not the same. I mean, obviously there's some quality issues, but like, why they're not collectible? They're felt like as almost disposable. Would you agree with that? And if so, why do you think that is? Because I mean, if anybody would know, you guys move tons of albums every year.
Yeah. We just opened a giant record store. So here's the thing. One of the most requested items, because the record store is, well, we've carried vinyl for a few years now. The record store is new to us, a store that primarily draws people in for, records. Yeah. One of the most requested things we've had is cassette tapes. So in my opinion, what I think is that everything has like a market to be collectible. I'm a big hip hop guy. So like, and most of the like hip hop heads, like you're going after tapes, you know what I mean? Like tapes are like where it's at, as opposed to vinyl. So with comics, like, I mean, honestly, I don't think they're disposable enough. Like, I think that like, I think the moment that I think the magic of comics and what makes them cool and makes them collectible is that they are disposable, and that is what sparks the excitement for somebody when they do have one that ends up the demand outweighs the supply, and then everybody is after it. And usually if you look at the trends, I mean, like, everyone that's held its value or increased in value has either been because, a character with longevity that was introduced at the time when, like, maybe like people didn't, like, you know the Punisher was going to be a massive hit in, Amazing Spider-Man 129, or that Miles was going to be a massive hit in Ultimate Fallout 4. Or if the content is just so darn good, but, like, when Walking Dead came out, no one was reading zombie comics, you know what I mean? Except for me, you know what I mean? Like,
Me
so,
too.
like,
I hand sold a ton of Walking Dead #1 personally. I don't know what
yeah,
everybody keeps saying they're not out there. I sold a bunch of those books. Yeah.
yeah,
Anyway.
man. No, I mean, totally. I remember I was working at a shop and I got Battle Pope in the mail from Robert, and I was
Yeah.
like, oh, this dude's cool. And then when Walking Dead came out, I was like, what's going on here?
Yeah. Yeah. No kidding. No kidding. All right. Well, so not disposable enough. That's interesting philosophically. I was just talking to somebody who deals with a publisher who deals with a lot of stores who do exclusives. And one of the challenges they're having is trying to communicate to these retailers that not every book that comes out of the printer is a 10. They're not all 9.8s, right?
No.
That's part of printing. That's part of life, you
Yeah.
know? So do you know it saying what you have just said? I mean, what is your store's philosophy on that? Obviously you want to return things that are too bad, but where's that line for you?
For us, we try to we want to have all the different audiences that come through us happy. So we want to make sure that our guys who want those 9.8s are happy, and we
Yeah.
want to make sure that, people who don't care are happy. You know what I mean? And in the case of people who want 9.8s, I mean, we typically will try to make sure that we have books that I would say are in good condition, and, like, but we don't promise 9.8 condition. We also don't promote it. I mean, your store is a reflection of the culture that you build. So, like, while we've got that audience and we'll serve that audience, we're also not, like, hitting every signing that we do and saying, like, cool signature series, this, blah blah blah. Like, our philosophy at the store is, honestly, does it make you stoked? Are you excited to get it? Are you excited to have it? Whether you're collecting it, reading it, whatever it might be, that's our philosophy. That's what we're about. And if it does end up becoming something worth, money later on, that's great. We're all about it. But
Yeah.
but it's not something that we make as the singular selling point for those kind of books.
Beautiful, beautiful. I love that philosophy. I think that's fantastic. Well, tell me, let's start real broad and then let's get real granular.
Yeah.
Uh, State of comics. What do you think? Comics as a general. I mean, you can use as broad a definition as you want for that, but I think you're one of the few people that I've over the years. I'm like, where are we? I usually call Steve, and Steve has at least a point of view that I can begin to challenge. Like, where is comics right now?
Thank you for that. That's flattering. I I think we're in a really good place. I mean, like, I've been feeling it trend up probably since, like, the start of the year. Like, the start of the year, things kind of, but it's all cyclical, Like, I mean,
Yeah.
I knew we were going to be in a good place. Like, I mean, like, I think where we are right now is where we were in about 2010 into a 2011, right before New 52 came out. I think that's
Okay.
right where we are. I think we're spring of 2011. AVX just dropped, I believe, and New 52 is coming in September. And I think that you had the explosion of all those great, like, creator-owned books at the same time, but at the
Yeah.
same time, the stands weren't crowded, and you had, like, room for this quality material to start coming out. And if you think about it, if you look at, like, what's been coming out through the market, like, it's all very exciting stuff, and it's making people stoked, and it's getting them pumped, and it's content driven. And I
Yeah.
think that, like, right now, I think that I feel like comics has, like, a transition point um between readerships every, like, 2 to 3 years. And I think that 2022 into the end of 2023 was a transition point between where we were and where we're going. And I think where we were from, like, 2019 to 2022 um, was people who kind of, they came of age in the late 90s. And because the Wednesday Warrior demographic is typically that 25 to 40 sweet spot. And I think a lot of those people came of age in the late 90s, and it was Spawn, it was
Hmm.
variant covers, it was like, things of that nature. But then what happens is that demographic will go hard, and that's when you see like tons of the retailer exclusives, et cetera, et cetera. Venom's huge, all that stuff. And now where we're going, the biggest hit this year is Ultimate Spider-Man and Energon Universe. And why are they the biggest hits? Because they're really fucking good. Like they're really good. Like they're good books. Like that's the
They
thing.
are.
Like
Yeah,
they're
they
good
really
books.
are.
They're going to like fifth and sixth printings. Is there a little bit of speculatory interest? There's a little bit, but that's not the driver. The driver is people are connecting with it, and that's because the readership that's coming in now came of age in the early 2000s. And the early 2000s was Bendis and Civil War and all of those kind of things. And it's a cycle. You go through it. So there's always going to be a 2 to 3 year period where comics start to kind of, for us as retailers, get hard. You know what I mean? There's not a lot to
Yeah.
sell and everyone's scared. They say the industry's going to die and all this other crazy stuff.
Yeah.
But then, like, it picks back up.
Yeah, yeah, it has. It seemingly always has. All right. Well, excellent. Let's talk about Third Eye.
Okay.
We're going to get into the history of Third Eye, but before we do, I want to talk about the name. As somebody who owns a company that people tend to refer to as that woo woo shit, I mean, talking about people's third eye, that's some woo woo shit. How did you guys end up that name?
It's not terribly exciting, but it has multiple origin stories, and I keep coming up with new ones. But
Do you
the
have a new
reality,
one?
I don't have a new one, but the reality is that when we were thinking about opening the store, this is like 2006,
Yeah,
probably, when I was like dreaming of it, and then the opportunity just kind of fell in my lap, and like there was a store that was closing. We were able to, like, I had barely enough money to basically get in, take on the diamond debt, and open up Third Eye, um, and I just wanted something that if you spelled it numerically in the phone book under comics, it would come up first. That
so,
was it. I mean,
so
that was
it's a three. It's not a THIRD. It's a
it was a
three.
three.
It was a three.
And then within a year, that didn't really matter. But like, I mean, like,
Yeah,
I also wanted something that people could shorten,
yeah.
um, and they could just say, "I'm going to Third Eye. I'm not going to Third Eye Comics," or
Got it. Right,
because
right.
I wanted to. I knew that even like way back when, I knew that like the smartest thing to do with our business was going to be to consistently be trying to diversify our product offerings and broaden our net so that we have multiple different streams of revenue in case one of those categories, like we just talked about with comics, does slump for a bit.
Right. All right. Well, excellent. All right. Now we're gonna
And
go
the
way
woo woo
back.
stuff is part of it too. I mean, but
Yeah.
we'll save my ayahuasca stories for later, right?
Excellent. All right. We're going to do that for next year's follow up interview.
There you go.
Um, all right. So we've done it. We've done it as much as we could find out about you. And I found a lot that was really interesting about your story that I hadn't heard before. And you've been really open about the fact that you dropped out of school in the ninth grade, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Will you talk about that decision? Because that's a big deal for most people and tends to like define things in not necessarily a great path for them. Can you talk about that moment, right?
Yeah, I mean, like I mean, like, I didn't have the best background. So like it wasn't that big of a deal for me. Um, but honestly, it was just figuring out how to get away with it. You know what I mean? Um, but I mean, like, basically, like, I mean, I moved around a lot as a kid. You know what I mean? Like, I bounced around, all over the place. Neighborhood to neighborhood, trailer to trailer. I mean, like, I was just bouncing around as a kid. Like, my family moved around a lot, and my folks were split. I lost my dad early. And like, I hated school. I hated being the new
Yeah,
kid. And honestly, now I'm kind of thankful for the fact that I was the new kid. Because I mean, that's how I got into comics. That's how I got into, skateboarding as a kid. That's how I got into punk rock. That's how I got into metal. That's how I got into hip hop. That's how I got into all these cool things I'm into now. Because, when you're a new kid, you're always meeting a new group of friends, and you're always getting turned on to dope new stuff.
right.
And, and that made me who I am now, to where, like, I can connect on anything, man. Like I've been around so many different things. I love it, you know,
Yeah.
and it made me a better person. But at the time, being the new kid in school, it always sucked, and I just wanted to read comics and skateboard and screw off.
I gotta have so much more time about for that if I just
Yeah,
didn't have to bother with school.
yeah,
Yeah.
so I dropped out. And I started working at 14. My stepfather did like construction stuff, so I was a helper.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd help with like drywall, tile, things like that. And
Did
you
that.
know, after that, I just I got my Maryland State diploma when I was 16. That's the equivalent of the GED here. And
Mm-hmm.
and then that was pretty much it. I mean, like I worked a bunch more jobs I didn't like, and then after that, I you know started working at my local comic shop when I was about 18 or 19.
Yeah.
And I worked there for many years, and then
What
worked a
shop
couple
was
other.
that?
That was Alliance Comics in Bowie, Maryland.
Okay. Alliance.
Yeah,
Are they still there?
they are not. No,
Okay.
no. Yeah. But they were great. You know what I mean? They taught me a lot of good stuff. They were a very like forward thinking shop. Like clean and just like very well organized, and they built a lot of good stuff in me. And then you know I worked a couple more jobs in my early 20s that I really didn't like, and one day I woke up and I said, you know what, I'm gonna I don't know what I'm gonna do, but nobody ever said like you're gonna be able to open a business or anything like that. And I was naive enough to think I could get a business loan for a comic shop in 2007, which that was really naive. That was a year before Iron Man, dog. So I just I started selling my books at the clandestine comic shows in Maryland, and
Yeah.
saving money. I started selling books online through sites like Comic Collector Live and stuff like that, um and just pocketing the money and putting it aside. And eventually for store that my store I worked at was friendly with, the guy was like, I'm getting out. Really nice guy. He's actually a sub of mine still at one of my shops. And
Awesome.
I had barely enough money to basically just take it on, and then just been go 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 ever since.
So you literally like you just kind of bootstrapped that money. You just tucked it
Yeah.
away and was with your own savings.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah. It
wonderful.
wasn't a lot. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, like,
What was the price tag? Do you know? Do you remember?
oh man, I don't want to say it
All
was, but
right.
it wasn't a lot. It wasn't
Was
a
not a
lot.
lot. No, that's good. Well, what decisions did you make during that first store? Are they? Is there DNA in that first store that continues on? Like,
Yes.
okay, what are those through lines? Like, if you look back and you just walked into that first Third Eye, what would look the same?
I mean, like, if you want, in terms of like physically speaking, I mean, the store is open. There's space. There's space for people to shop and like not feel cluttered. Everything is grabbable.
Right.
Everything is touchable. Um, the colors of the walls. I mean, like the blue is the that we use for our stores has been the same since we opened that store. You know what I mean? Like we've still used that same color blue in all of our stores. That it's like a real cool color. It doesn't contrast much against other colors. Um, and just like honestly though, I mean, like the thing that I would say is the through line, the DNA of Third Eye and what makes us what we are. It really boils down to two things. Number one, from day one to now, every customer experience, every customer interaction, everything that we do for the customer is paramount. Everything else comes second. The customer experience is number one. You know what I mean? I will
Yeah.
take and literally get in my truck and drive 7 hours today if I need to go. If I've got somebody who's in dire state, they've got a book they need. Like I'm gonna make it happen. And we've built a culture of that at Third Eye, and our people that are here with us, like that's from when you start here. That's the thing that we build in. Like it's just you're here for the customer, and that's what matters the most. We're excited about the customer. We're excited about them because comics is escapism. We're their escape, and that's the thing. Everybody walks into a comic shop feeling magical, and if we don't live up to that magic that they're envisioning when they Google us and they say I'm going to the comic shop, then we're not doing a good job. That's the first thing. The second thing, I
Right.
worked every day, and I still work every day. I worked 7 days a week. Trish and I were, it was me and her, and we didn't hire anybody for about a year and a half. And even now, like even when we did hire somebody, if I wasn't in the store, I was working on the store. And 15, we're 16 years in, and I'm here every day. I probably still pull about 80 to 90 hours a week minimum. And I love it. I love every second of it. And
Yeah.
the culture that we've built, those are the people that we have. You know what I mean? Like Carolyn, who I just introduced you to, our COO, like same deal. You know what I mean? Like, and everybody has a different level. You know what I mean? Like, everybody's got a different expectation, and they're like, hey, you talk about work-life balance, and we're very supportive of that. But then
Right.
there's also people too who are just like, this is what I love. This is what I want to do. And that's third eye.
That's interesting. I do want to get into some of your philosophies on hiring and training, but I want to dig into that here real quick. Uh, so you're talking about basically dealing with people as they come to you. If they're saying I need a work-life balance, or they're saying I want to go go go, I want opportunities to succeed with that go go go, you're adjusting for them individually.
If they
Uh,
bring value, absolutely,
yeah,
100%, we can make it
right,
work.
right. So is that how are you? I mean, because you're how many employees are you now?
What are we, like 40, 45, 46
Right.
roundabout? That's the entire company.
Wow. Yeah. So 45, 46 employees. You obviously have some policies in place, some training in place. How are you set up so that you are also able to remain adaptable to allow those kinds of people to like flourish or find their spot and create value and be in their lane? Like, is there a philosophical way you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, to a degree, I mean, like we just believe in being direct, you know,
Yeah.
direct, honest communication. When we interview people, we lay out the expectations, and like we tell them, we're like, hey, you just want to have some fun, sell some comics, we can help you do that.
Yeah.
You want to have some fun, you want to sell some comics, you want a career, we can do that. And here's what that looks like. Here's what this looks like. And we're just direct. We're just direct and honest, and we just talk to people the way that we'd want to be talked to. And that's honestly the best like strategy in building a good culture and a good staff is just that kind of communication of like this is, I treat others how you want to be treated. It's one of the
Yeah.
golden rules.
Amen.
Yeah, and we also pay our people good. Like we do. I mean, like
I've
we give
heard.
them incentive, and we offer a really great retirement plan. We offer great health care. I mean, like we really do understand the value, especially in this industry, because it is hard to find people in this industry. Um, in retaining people and fostering them and building them so that they can help us do more cool stuff.
I do want to come back to that, but I'd like to, before I lose it, you were saying you worked basically 7 days a week since 2008. Let's just call it that,
Yeah.
right? Right. Now, I will also say that you do a great job of being able to passionately and knowledgeably talk about a lot of different things that most people consider to be hobbies, part time, right? I have seen you can talk about gaming. You can talk about music. You can talk about comics, and at no point do I feel like you are um, there's no level of it. It never sounded like bullshit that you're just spouting off some marketing copy to me. It sounds like something you have. How do you balance that? I mean, you're working 7 days a week and you can still talk so much about these things. Is it just because that is your work that it's also your play? Where does that come from?
I mean, one of the things when we bring people into Third Eye is the part of the training is we are excited about what the customer is excited about.
Yeah.
We're excited about that, and not like in a salesy way where it's like that's all that matters, but more that we want to see the genuine joy and just excitement that somebody coming in gets, whether they're getting the brand new issue of Blood Hunt or they're getting like the brand new like a really dope Mobius reissue, whatever it is. Like we want to engage on that. Maybe we don't know what that is. I mean, I've gotten into so much cool stuff myself
Yeah.
because of working in comic shops and talking to people, and like I didn't know about Carl Barks or Don Rosa or any of that, and like so one of my customers was like, "Nah, man, these Duck comics," when I was a kid,
Yeah.
and I'm like 20 years old, like really, what I mean? And then I read it, and I'm like, "Holy shit, you're right," Um, and I think that's how I'm able to stay so in touch because I mean, even if it's something that like I'm not personally like going to be like that's my jam. I'm going to take that home and I'm going to put that movie in, or I'm going to put that album on. I get excited by the excitement that that brings to someone else, and that helps
Yeah.
me stay passionate about it. And I'm lucky to be surrounded by a lot of people who work for me, and a lot of people who are part of this company, and a lot of people who shop with me, who also have that same vibe. And then when they talk about the things they're excited about, that excites me. Like, I mean, like the record store. Like I'm like, I didn't know who Chappelle Rowan was until like a month ago, and I'm like, whoa, that's pretty cool. Like it's dope. Like it's cool. So I mean, like that's the thing.
Yeah, excellent. Well, I mean, and that should be. I think that's that. Mean, we picked the life in comic books of all things. You should be able to stay passionate about this. It is
Yeah, yeah.
fun. It should remain fun. All right, cool. Uh, can we? Oh, I was in reading. I read it in the Comics Journal interview. You talked about your daily routine, and I'm a nerd about this stuff. Like, I will talk all day long about what you eat for breakfast, and when you work out, and what sort of how do you think about your protein intake. I know from talking to you, like, I think you might have been the first or second person who I heard say something about intermittent fasting. So there you go. You're always interested in that kind of thing. So tell me, like, what is this? What is it? I'm sure it's taken some tinkering. But
Yeah.
what is Steve Anderson? You wake up. When is that? Give me the first few. Give me the first few beats of the day. What does that look
It
like?
I mean, it changes from time to time. The
Yeah.
routine from 3 years ago is a little different than the routine now. But I mean, the point of it's the same, which is basically to be able to work from 4 or 5 a.m. until 10 o'clock at night and not drop dead. That's the point. So right now, I mean, my routine is pretty simple. I mean, like I don't eat sugar. I haven't eaten sugar in probably, was it 2014 or 2024, like 11 years. Like I cut out
Wow.
sugar in 2013. I used to be a big health nut when I was in my early 20s. I was really into bodybuilding, and I was really into like like just like watching my macros and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then when I opened the store, I had $0 to really do any of that.
Sure.
And I was working all the time, and any of my bad habits came back.
Yeah.
And I put on a bunch of weight. You know what I mean? And I ballooned up. And then in 2013, I wanted to lose it. So I looked into the ketogenic diet, and I did that. I lost about 70, 80 pounds. And then, yeah, yeah. And then I dropped that down, and then I got decently lean for a bit, probably when I did that Comics Journal interview. And then,
Right.
I think I probably put on a few, 10, 20 later. You know what
Like
I
we all
mean? It
do.
comes on, it goes off. But I mean,
Yeah.
for me, it's more about how I feel.
Right.
And I've maintained that like sugar-free thing for a long time. Now, don't get me wrong. I mean, there's points over the last 11 years. Like I'm sure there's instances once or twice where I'm like, this is a cheat night. You know what I mean? But
Sure.
I don't have those often because it's like a hangover the next day.
Yeah.
It feels like you feel like shit. So for me, I just my big thing now is I just eat once a day. I eat at the end of the day. I don't eat anything except for black coffee. That's pretty much the only thing I have throughout the day. I do drink a lot of coffee, and usually when my work day is done, that's when I eat. I don't eat until the work day is done because I want to feel like I feel like I work better not having eaten. My
That's
brain is
fascinating.
sharper. Yeah.
So I could see how you would like that hunger wouldn't be overwhelming for you, right? That wouldn't
No,
be
no, not
because you
when
get
you're
used to
well, the
it.
sugar is what makes the hunger come. So like
Yeah. Yeah.
your glucose levels go up and down, and then that's where you get like the headache if you're hungry. But if you're sugar free and you're not eating carbohydrates or eating simple like carbohydrates like corn tortillas are okay, things like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
That you don't really have those spikes in insulin because your body's not running off of glucose. So you don't really get hungry and you get used to it. And it's not, I mean, I don't get hungry until like probably 7 or 8 o'clock at night, like, and then, like you eat, we go to bed, and
Yeah.
then do it all over again.
I don't. I'm having such a hard time remembering who it was. There's a director who did all of those kind of B movies.
Yeah.
Toxic Avenger, I think, was one of them.
Oh,
And
yeah. Lloyd Kaufman.
Lloyd Kaufman. Apparently,
Yeah.
I read a book
He's
that
one of
he
my
did.
patron saints.
Huh?
One of my patron saints.
Oh, well, he apparently has the same practice. Did not
Doesn't he
eat
really? I did not
all
know
day
that.
long on the set. Everybody's like, "What the? How is he going? He's not stopped to eat all day." And they would find him at the diner at the end of the night, having ordered everything on the menu. And
Yeah,
it's
no,
just,
no. I mean
ah,
that.
you know.
Yeah, when you do eat, you're hungry. Like you're gonna eat. And I mean, like, don't get me wrong, too. Like, I mean, there are times like where I might not break the sugar-free thing, but like socially, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
if I'm in a different, like, let's say I'm in a different place, I'm in a different
sure.
town or something, like, I might eat lunch, you know what I mean? But I know that like my work day needs to be in a place where I feel I'm done or I'm close to done because I just will not function as optimally as I do when I haven't eaten for the whole day.
Dude, your drive is always impressive to me. I love
Thank
that.
you. I just love
Uh,
what I do. I'm sure that's probably Lloyd's thing too.
yeah.
He's probably like, I just don't want to slow down. Sleepy after you eat, you know?
um, let's see, March 2020. So we're talking just before COVID. You did this interview, which I thought was fascinating because it gives us like a sort of a little flash of what your life is like pre and post. To ICV2, you were talking about, I think you had 33 employees at the time, and your wish is that you had grown middle management sooner.
Yeah.
Now, just before we started, we met your COO, which is awesome. Would you say, has that changed any in the last 4 years? How much of that have you been able to shift that, if any?
Yeah, actually that's a great question. Would you mind if she's okay with it if I brought Caroline in on this one?
Please, I'd love that.
I
Come on
disrupt you.
in.
Awesome, cool. Because she's been a huge part of what you're asking. Cool. So hey everybody, this is Caroline
Hey.
Garcia.
Hi,
She's our
Carolyn.
chief operating officer at Third Eye, and she's awesome.
Well,
Been with the company 3 years and has completely annihilated and killed it ever since. So
wow.
middle management at that time, like that was the thing that like we probably had like the biggest struggle with was like basically managing. You know what I mean? Like at
Yeah.
scale. Yeah, we were growing and like basically like, it's a lot different when it's like one or two stores and I'm handling everybody, you know what I mean? And I'm pretty much I can't do that at the scale that we've gotten to. And I couldn't do it effectively then with 33 people. I don't think that I was a great um manager at scale. It wasn't really. I mean, I would say that over the past 2 to 3 years, we've worked on building infrastructure, and Carolyn's been a huge part of that. And that's her thing. I mean, that's operations, that's making sure
Yeah.
everybody's doing what they're supposed to be doing. And I mean, a testament to that is the fact that we had 33 employees then and five less stores. And, we did have a warehouse and we did have our mail order. And now we have 44 employees and five more stores, and our sales volume is significantly higher.
Wait a minute. How many locations are you up to now?
Technically 9.
Jesus.
But they're not all comic shops. They're not all comic shops. And we do
Still.
count the 3 Annapolis stores as individual stores because
Right.
each one has its own staff and its own, like, it's
Inventory.
yeah, own inventory. It's its own entity completely.
Where did he find you, Carolyn? Where
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I started in March of 2021. I was working, yeah. I was working at the National Institutes of Health doing scientific research for the Undiagnosed Disease Program
Okay.
in the pediatric wing. So completely nothing to do with comics. But I was interested in taking up a part-time job, and I got my little email from like the Steve at Third Eye account that was like, "Oh, we're hiring," and I was like, "All right, I might as well submit my resume." And I started working part-time, minimal hours, like I'm talking like little baby 4-hour shifts. And by the end of the year, I was like, I'm looking forward more to these 4-hour shifts than I am at waking up at my 9 to 5. And so I talked to Steve, and he offered me a full-time position, and I was like, might as well. I deferred my decision to go to grad school, and I was like, I just want to see where this goes. If I don't like it, it's fine. I tried it. I moved forward, but I didn't want to live with the what if. And I'm really happy that I jumped on, because this is the best job I've ever had. It's awesome here.
That's wonderful. Take that, man. There you go. That you can do that. That pull quote that goes into your social. Where I was going to ask Steve this earlier. What do you think is the third eye secret weapon?
Honestly, in terms of like retail, it's the like individual experience. And when I say that, I mean it when you shop in the stores, you feel like you're a part of a community and you're part of something. Like you might not know what's going on everywhere else. You might not have anything else. You know, you might be like, oh God, like, but I know come Wednesday, my pull box is there. I have new comics. And I love seeing the connection. For me, one of the biggest things that I love about this job is seeing two people who would never cross paths otherwise talk about how much they love the Captain America run or the new Batman that just dropped. And it's so cool seeing something like this bring people together in a time where like things are pretty, you know, can be pretty divisive. It's pretty cool to see that Third Eye is kind of mending fences here just by being themselves.
All right. So I like that as an answer for the stores and the culture, but it feels to me like just assuming what your day to day looks like. It seems to me that you have a much broader perspective over 9 locations, right?
Mm-hmm.
What would you say? Because I can say that I confidently say that I've spent a lot of time at comic shops where that interaction, while it is not as common as I would like, is common in many stores. But the growth that we've seen out of your stores is not common, like at all. It is it possibly seen once or twice in the U.S., and I would say that in many ways, what you guys have done is incredibly unique. So, where do you think corporately? What is that secret sauce?
Internally, honestly, people are not going to believe me when I say this, but when I started here, the biggest thing that like attracted me to working here full time and made me feel happy coming in is the gratitude shown to its staff. Like at the end of every shift, Steve and Trish are there. They're there every day. This isn't like someone else managing you from far away. This is like, these are the owners here helping you out on the sales floor. And at the end of every day, and I've told Steve this story too, they say, thank you for your hard work today. And I remember being stunned into silence, which is kind of crazy, but being stunned into silence, being like, oh my God, yeah, of course. And that is now ingrained into me. So when I've come in and I was a manager at the comic shop, I always remembered that thanks for your hard work today. Because no matter what, it feels appreciated, and that makes me want to work harder.
Dude, I don't know how that makes you feel, but I'm a little verklempt for you, dude. I mean, that's
no, I mean, I've heard this from Carolyn before, and it always makes me feel this way. Like I always feel the same. I mean, but it's true. I mean, like that's it. You know, I mean, that gratitude and just, you know, and we like to reward that. You know what I mean? Like we want people to know,
Sure.
like when I worked at a comic shop, I have a distinct memory. I was about 19 or 20 years old. Most of my friends at the time, they were getting ready to go into trade. You know what I mean? Electrician, elevator mechanic, etc. And I had a buddy, and his dad was a union electrician guy, and always trying to get. You know, he was going to be an electrician. Nothing against electricians. I'm not knocking at all. I mean,
Sure.
good job, make good money. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I'm
And
not
we
smart
need
enough.
them. We need them.
Yeah, it's something you need. I'm not smart enough for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I really wanted to just sell comic books. And I remember calling him. His dad was a little tipsy, and I remember him saying, you know, is this that Steve Anderson who lives in his parents' basement smoking weed, working at that comic book store, and like just kind of just downing me. And like that was kind of the story of like working in a comic shop as an early 20 something, was that it didn't there it was a dead end job. It was not a job that had growth. It was not a job that had potential. It was not something seen as a job that somebody could go into and build a life doing. Is a cool job, but like most cool jobs, it was written off. And one of the things that I always took with me after I heard that was that we're not that kind of company. So when people come in, I tell them straight up, everybody starts at entry level. We know we hire everybody at the same rate, and we bring them in, and we tell them, we're like, now that doesn't mean you're going to stay there. Sometimes people raise up 2-3 times in a year. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I mean, Carolyn's a prime example. 3 years, highest ranked employee in the company. You know what I mean? She's helping run this shit. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
That's because it's performance based. And we tell everybody, you put in, you're going to get back. And that's a big part of the culture here is basically you put in, you have drive, you show that drive, we're gonna push you far, and you're gonna push us far. Like when I have someone like Carolyn or some of the other great people that work here that have that same drive, like that pushes me. That makes me work 7 days a week. That makes me work 14 hours a day and be damn happy about it because I've got good people surrounding me that are just as driven and want to do the same.
Well, also though, I mean, you're putting not a small amount of pressure on yourself, right? You're saying to every person who comes in the door to sweep the floors and stock the shelves, if you put in, you're going to grow.
Yeah.
That puts a lot of pressure on you to create the capacity for that growth for everyone you bring in. There's no small amount of like ratcheting up the dial on Steve and Trish as well. You know,
that's the answer to your question. How do we grow so much?
Oh, look at you!
I'm going to pay these people.
Tell me about it. What does a Third Eye staffer look like? Somebody who walks in the door. I assume you get good at seeing them. What is that? What makes them special?
Do you want to answer?
I would say that they're just like they're smiling, they're coming at you, and they're just it's so rare, I feel, that you see people that are just so jazzed to be at their job that you go in there and you're like, oh, hell yeah, like what's going on in here?
Yeah, exactly.
I want a little piece of this.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, they'll come in and you will never walk into a Third Eye and see someone that's not smiling because the staffers are just so stoked to be there that kind of is infectious.
Yeah.
So yeah, they look like just a smiling, happy employee. It's pretty dope.
Yeah. We're very anti-cynicism at Third Eye.
Yeah.
Cynicism's out of style now.
I dig that a lot. I will tell you, I have to tell, this is a good opportunity to tell this story. One of my favorite about Third Eye is first time I walked into a store. I have been in a lot of comic shops in my time. And one of the ways that I deal with getting to know what a comic shop is actually like is I don't walk in the door and say, hey, my name is Adam. I work for so-and-so, or I do such and such. I come in and act like everybody else, right?
Me too.
Because I want to see, do they greet me? Do they offer to help? Are they looking to help me, answer a question or whatever? Or, are they pushing their way in? And then usually also I will, once I've been approached, I will say, well, what's good? And then I do this thing where I basically buy everything they offer because I want to hear them pitch, and I'm encouraging them to pitch. They're going to pitch me some more.
I'm gonna show everybody your picture before you come down next time. I'm like, man, he wants omnibuses out the ass. Omnibuses.
I believe that. I do. But so in this particular instance, I came in, and again, gorgeous store, obviously signage everywhere, well organized. And this jolly bearded man who I later learned his name Torma comes at me, and and he's talking me up, and I'm like, okay, this is great. So far, check. And then eventually we get through, and I have a stack, and I say something. I tell him who I am. At which point, Trish never actually says much to me. She says, hey, what size T-shirt do you wear? And I'm like, okay, we'll see how this goes. And so I tell her, and she runs up at the back. And she comes back with, and you guys do a new Third Eye shirt like every year, right? This is like one of your traditions.
Mm-hmm.
Huh?
Yeah. No, we do a few.
Yeah. So the one that she brings back is your Third Eye guy, and he's got the Bowie lightning bolt on on his face. And I look at her, and I look at it, and I look at her, and then I open the shirt that I'm wearing, and underneath it is a Bowie t-shirt that was sitting underneath there. And I always just felt like there's a little bit of magic in this spot. I don't know what it is. Huh?
That's how we got the name Third Eye.
Is that it?
We just know. We can just look and know.
That's right. You see. You can just see it in my soul. So tell me about process. Because obviously, that kind of skill, all of those things that we've talked a lot, Steve, you and I, about how comic shop employees and I don't know what to call them. Personally, I like calling them hand sellers because I think at their best, that's what they do. That's the part in our industry that the role that they play is that they are able to take people who are maybe just a fan of one thing and make them fans of lots of things, and or introduce them to something they've never thought of before. And I think that there is a skill to that. There is an ability, and obviously some of what you're doing is recognizing the people that are capable of that. But talk to me about the training once they're there. Like, how do you pull that capability out? And I don't want you to. I'm not looking for anything proprietary. Don't you don't have to show me your employee manual. But I'm just kind of curious. What does that feel like?
I mean, I think it's gonna be a two-part answer. You mind if I give some and then?
No,
Yeah, cool. I'm not jamming you up on your stuff. Okay, cool, good deal.
Yeah, if you have to work, Carol, this was not in your schedule today, and I understand. He's not going to take it easy on you just because you were in this interview. So let's just.
So on our end, everybody has strengths and weaknesses. You know what I mean? Like when you bring people in, sometimes they're you can tell right away this person is going to be a hell of a seller. They're going to be very good. They're personable. They've got that ability to connect with people. You know what I mean? They can get out there and do it. But there's so much more to it than that. Like it's not just being personable. There's also a level of like being aware. You know what I mean? Like you can find somebody who's very charismatic and friendly and is able to, talk, but like, can they make the sale? Can they close?
Yeah.
And, it's something where that if they've got both, that's great, and you point it out them and you really just like want to encourage that it doesn't matter if it's a $5 transaction or a $500 transaction. What matters is how excited the customer is. If you sell $10 worth of stuff and that customer takes one of our stickers and they put it on the back of their car, you did just as good as if you sold $100 worth of stuff. Because what you did was you made somebody who's now one of our Third Eye Faithful. There's somebody who's going to be hitting up our store. They're going to be devout. You know what I mean? They're going to hit up all our shops. But then at the same time, you get people who you identify are more process oriented, or maybe more, attentive to, other things. And there's a lot of jobs that we have here that require those skill sets. You know what I mean? Right. But I would say like the big thing for us when we bring somebody in when it comes to training and stuff is really just encouraging that kind of culture of just drive and just like, we're going to find what you're good at and then we're going to train you on that. And then we're going to point you where you're going to succeed best. And then we're going to take you far. And that's the biggest thing. But in terms of specifics to training, it really varies person to person. I mean, our training is very much based around the person. You know what I mean? And we tell people we hire them, we're like, we'll know in 2 weeks or not if you're a fit. If you're a fit, you'll be here a long time probably and you'll do really well. If you're not a fit, probably part ways. You know what I mean? And that's okay. You know what I mean? You're not wasting too much time on us and we're not wasting too much time on you. Like it's kinder that way for us to be upfront and let people know like, hey, it's not for everybody. You know what I mean? It doesn't mean that it's not good for them overall, but like just what we do is not always for everybody because it's unique.
Is that 2-week check? Is that something that's like, is that kind of a standard process? Is that SOP or is
not
that
really standard process? But we just let them know that we'll know if they fit or not in the first couple weeks.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
what do you think percentage wise? How many people are dropped out or invited to? You think after that 2 weeks?
I mean, we have the best staff in this industry. We have probably the best staff in almost any retail industry. Like in the retail industry, not just comics, but we have the best staff in retail. Like no doubt, they're better. I'll put them up against Apple store employees. I'll put them up against what's another one.
Yeah, dude, we could outcompete Chick-fil-A easy.
Yeah. Williams Sonoma, like we'll put them up against any of the other big ones that are known for good service. Our staff is the best. And percentage wise, I couldn't tell you exactly, but sure. we only want the best because we are not looking at it like a typical retail store where we want to bring somebody in and then get them out in a year or two when they start to grow which is what most big box or chain retail wants to do. We want to build leaders. We want to build, we call them killers at Third Eye. We want to build killers. You know what I mean? People who perform at a level of excellence that is not the norm.
I dig it. All right. Let's take
real
a
quick. I want to take that back to Carolyn real fast because she has a much better answer than I do.
No. No, I mean, as far as training goes, we do really tailor it to like the individual strength. We keep the whatever they perform the strongest on. If they're more process oriented or more people oriented, we definitely try to give them the tools to succeed either way. Confidence is a big thing. So very early on, we're making sure to show them these are the distributors. These are who you're going to look for these books. If you can't find them here, you can also find them here. This is what final order cutoff means. This is what it means if there's a release date delay. This is how you handle that. We give them all the tools to prepare. My goal is always when I train people is that they don't need me in a couple of weeks, because that means I've done a good job. So I always try and give everyone all of the knowledge that I have gained from Steve and Trish. I try to pass that on completely, because that's the way that everyone grows.
You're right. That was a great answer. All right, I want to take a couple hard left turns here, if you don't mind. We talked a little bit about that cool little snapshot just pre-COVID, and then there's actually a couple interviews with you, Steve, out there just post-COVID, and I know you and I talked a lot during that period about how the industry is and how retail could handle it. And I would say that you were one of the few stores that I personally saw that I felt like was prepared for what was coming without over indexing, so I feel like you guys you get a fairly good job of staying nimble and seeing how things were going to play out and deal with what was actually in front of you, as opposed to assuming one way or the other. And I don't really necessarily want to talk too much about that, except to question, there were a bunch of things that you changed during that period. And I'm finding it really fascinating to ask business owners, what are the long-term effects from that period? What are the things that you changed that you kept? What are the things that you always wanted to try that just didn't work? And if they didn't work then, they're never going to work. Is there anything in there that you feel like has shaped Third Eye when you look back on it?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, the biggest thing was an upgrade in mindset. I mean, there was probably a small part of me before COVID that would stop and say, maybe I shouldn't open that next store. Maybe I shouldn't do this. Maybe I shouldn't try this. Maybe I shouldn't do these things. And when COVID happened, I mean, I'm a ninth grade dropout. All I've done is work in comics and construction and a few other things. And I'm really good at one thing, and it's this. So when it happened, I had probably a few days where I was like, man, what are we gonna do if this has never happened before? But then I said, well, we're gonna survive. We're gonna survive. We're gonna thrive. We're gonna find the silver lining here.
Just that you always say comics are the
cockroach is a pop culture. Yeah, somebody said that and it stuck with me. Yeah. So I was like, we're gonna survive. We're gonna get through it. And it's I'm a big believer in any hardship gives you better. You find things if you come through something, you're going to come out the other side learning something new because of what you had to do to get around it. It's going to teach you a couple things. One of the things I walked away from COVID was basically just life's too short, no slowing down. You know what I mean? So we opened a new store in September 2020. We opened another one in November 2020. And then we opened another one in July of 2022. And then we opened Third Eye Buys in 2022. And then we opened a record store just this January. And we expanded our e-com. We moved into fulfillment. I never stopped and said, is this going to be too much? Can I handle it? Because no, it's not going to be too much. You know what I mean? Because it could all be gone tomorrow. So that's that. Now, the answer you're looking for is anything actually substantial that changed process wise for us. And I would say that the biggest thing was probably it got my ass in gear to get serious about our e-commerce presence. And that was it. We'd sold a little bit online at the time, but we weren't like what we are now. I mean, we're I would consider us a pretty darn um, decent sized footprint in the online marketplace now for comics. And a lot of that comes from the fact that we had to learn how to do it during COVID. We had to learn to get better. We had to learn for better options. And I read a book about a year or two before COVID called Reinventing Retail, which was about the wall between online shopping and brick and mortar pretty much being gone and it all being the same thing. And
Mhm.
that book had a really big impact on me. And I took a lot of that into my thinking after COVID, where basically, and it was right, you know what I mean? Like people don't see the difference. Most of our e-commerce honestly is in-store pickup. And it's not like they don't come in and shop the store still. It's just the convenience factor and, the interactivity of it. And like,
Yeah.
the fact that people can get cool shit through different channels. So like, that's probably the biggest thing is the e-commerce, I would say is that was the thing we took that came out of it. But the most substantial thing for me and for us, I think, is probably the change in mindset.
Yeah, I believe that. I hard believe that. That's it has changed how we all view our lives, right? It just what is it you haven't done? It's time to get it
Yeah,
done. You
exactly.
know? Yeah. All right. So, how many of those 9 locations? How many of those were you found an empty box and you put a store into it versus you bought a store?
Two.
Two were you buying a
Yeah,
store or
well,
two
two.
empty?
So two, if you count the comic shops. The Annapolis stores, which we count as three, each of those stores is about 8,000 square feet, comes out to about 24,000 square feet or so across all three.
Yeah.
Uh, those stores, and Annapolis was an 800 square foot store that we bought the inventory, the assets, and the goodwill of, and then made it into Third Eye Comics. You know what I mean?
Right.
Um, but the only other ones that we ever opened cold were the store that became St. Mary's, which we opened in Prince Frederick, Maryland, and then we moved it because we realized that the store was too close to where the Annapolis store was. The Annapolis store, even at that time, was such a beast that it couldn't compete. You know what I mean? People were in
Yeah.
a halfway point. I drive 30 minutes this way. I drive 30 minutes this way. They're going to come up to the Annapolis store. We moved it further to where most of their customers were coming from, which put them a solid hour and 10 minutes away from the Annapolis store. Um,
Was
and
there any sort
then
of just to pause there for just a second? Was that what sort of research did you do into like that decision? Like, what did do? Were you looking at
the,
sales data? Yeah.
the first second store, honestly, was probably my first. I opened that store in, I guess it was probably like 2009, 2000. Yeah, it's like probably like, yeah, it's 2000. Golly, might have been it was either 2010 or 2009. It was very soon after we opened the other store. I think we'd been only been open for about 2 years after, right?
Right.
A lot of the data I had wasn't good data because it was anecdotal. So that was my first lesson in looking at sales data and looking at like things like proximity and all the like statistics and things of that nature. And then after that, I did start looking at that stuff much closer because I had to move that store to make it work. And
Right.
once I moved it, it worked. And then I have one more that I opened cold, which was our second of the two Richmond stores, which is in Henrico, Virginia, or Short Pump, Virginia, as most people call it down there. And Short Pump was a cold open as well. But outside of that, everything else is a store that we typically would acquire the assets, the inventory, the fixtures, the customer list, everything like all that, and basically just make it into a Third Eye. And that, you know, that seems to be the way that I like to do it. I mean, it just there's a market there for weekly comics. You have some hopefully you have some data from the retailer. I mean, they don't always have it, but sometimes like if they do, that helps you out in the beginning. It helps you, and
Sure.
I've bought some stores that don't have the data, and I've got some that do. And I mean, you got the data, you're gonna get a better price for your store.
That's true. Yeah, I'm sure. I do want to get into price per store. It's something you just said made me want to like make sure let me put a pin in price per store. But uh, how I assume that you are tracking, you're gathering data on the customers who come in. I'm assuming that stuff comes from things like subscription services and special orders and that sort of thing. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I mean 100%. obviously all that, purchase history,
Right.
you know, like that's purchase frequency, you know, do they come in once a month? Do they come in once a week? You know, where are they coming from? How far out are they coming from? How often do they buy online? How often do they come in the store? How often do they do both? All of these things make a difference, and all of this stuff is trackable, and it's, you know, just through point of sale.
To the point of sale, this through credit card transactions, then I assume, right? Is that how you're
I
getting
mean, well, I
names?
mean, like we have rewards, you know what I mean? So if you have a
Rewards.
rewards account, like you can, you know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Gotcha.
You can, yeah, it makes that a lot easier.
What POS are you using?
We use Shopify.
There you go. All
Yeah.
right. And do you have any add-ons that you've attached to that for managing things like subscriptions, or is that all in-house? Like, how
Everything
do
is
you?
in house.
Everything is in-house. Okay, cool.
Yeah, everything is in house.
All right, so let's talk about buying stores. And I'm going to tell you the truth. Like when we started conceiving this show, one of the things that we decided was something of value that we could bring to comic shops
Okay.
was information on buying and selling, businesses, right? How do
Hmm.
these work? And our second interview was a man named Ku Lang, who handles like M&A, mergers and acquisitions for larger companies. And so we wanted to get him talking about that. And we did. It was a great episode. I'm actually proud of it, especially since it was our second one. But and we also knew that you were in real buying mode, or at least you were. Maybe you are
I
still.
was. I'm not right now.
Okay, that's good. That was
Yeah.
one of my questions. But talk to me about how you find the locations. Are you approaching them? Are they approaching you? How does that dynamic work? Or I'm sure is it must
It
change.
varies. I mean, like I have a long list of places where I think that we would do well, but I also have rules. Like one of the rules is that like I will not open up in a market where I feel there's a healthy comic shop, because I don't think a market can support more than a handful of shops, especially if you have one really good shop. I
That's
feel like
interesting.
it's, yeah, I think that like, I feel like every 30 miles is kind of like the rule, because it's destination business. And you know, I've heard other people disagree. Other people are like, you know, like, yeah, I want to have this store over here doing this. I want to have this store doing that. But at the end of the day, a good comic shop is about building a culture, and it's hard to do that when the culture is fragmented across 3 or 4 different stores. Um,
Yeah. I mean,
that's that's my opinion on it.
I'm looking back at my experience and I can't find any way to disagree with you. I feel like there are plenty of markets where I feel like that they buck that trend. We see healthy
Absolutely.
shops with, blocks from each other, but yeah, no,
Yeah,
there's nothing in my personal experience I have that can do that. All right, so when
absolutely.
we start to talk about to a shop, talk about what goes into how you value it. I'm assuming that it's like any negotiation where someone brings up a number first and you work from there. But like if you personally, I know you go into a shop and you're probably like me. I cannot walk into a comic book store without putting together an estimated value of inventory, and
Right.
I'm rarely too far off when I get confirmation. I'm sure you can do the same.
Right.
What are the factors? And I don't, again, not looking for anything proprietary or any special sauce. What I'm really looking for is for stores that are looking to begin to think about selling and moving
Yes.
on, or stores that maybe somebody's looking to buy their first comic shop like you did. I'm just trying to give them kind of a broader, like a 101 look into this. How do you think about that?
I mean, honestly, it depends. I mean, like if the first price that comes, number one is the market itself.
Right.
Even if the store itself is not performing and their sales volume is low, I can usually just tell by a market if it's going to be a good market. I don't have, I mean, I can tell you data helps, but I mean, there's certain things in this business that are just, they're just there from doing it
Yeah.
so long. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And knowing history, you know what I mean? Like I'm a nerd for comic shops. Like the way that creators are nerds for other creators, I'm a nerd for comic shops. I follow all the shops. I dreamt about shops as a kid. I had retailers that I was like consistently impressed by. And I know the history of shops. So like if there's a store where maybe there's a store underperforming, and maybe like 10 years before that store, there was another store that was killing it. I know that. So I know that there's a market. So that's like kind of the folksy, like anecdotal answer to that. But I mean, like, if the price is low enough and the market's right, I mean, all the stuff you just said, it doesn't matter. I mean, some people sell their stores for crazy low amounts of money. I mean, like that's the thing.
Sure. They're just
But
done. They're just looking
the
to get something out so that they can walk away and go do something
right
else. Right.
and I've had those situations, but I've also had situations where they got pretty darn close to their asking price. Their asking price was a decent price. But the thing that differentiated the two was really just how much money is going to have to come from us to make that store a third eye. And I'm not just talking about the remodel, which is a part of it, but that's going to happen no matter what, because all of our stores are uniform. All of our stores have a look, have branding, etc.
The
But I'm
blue
talking
paint.
about blue paint.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about staffing. Does the store have like a phenomenal manager already that we can train? Well, that's worth paying for. You know what I mean? That's going to save me a lot of work right there. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that's super important. Does the store have good customer data? How is the store's inventory? Like that's the other thing I look at is like, how much inventory am I going to have to put into this store to make it work? So all of these things like kind of play into it. And I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, like if the dollar amount creeps up to where it's like not like a quick decision, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? That's when we start looking at things like EBITDA and things like that to like kind of like basically make sure we're making a fiscally smart decision.
Gotcha. What are
Yeah.
those when you've gotten that number? And because I'm assuming that most people who are selling are looking to get closer to that number than they are just give me
They always
enough,
are.
you know. Uh, what do those deals generally look like? Are you writing them a check and they're walking away? Is it like a down payment that they're financing? I mean, how do these usually go?
Depends on the situation. It varies.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really is a case by case situation. I will say this. Whatever you think you can sell your store for, and I'm not saying this from the position of somebody who's bought stores, um, who just wants to get a great deal. I'm not saying that at all, but I'm being realistic. You have to take and understand it's kind of like having a really dope, super rare like back issue that's super niche, like a like I don't know, like Weirdo from the 80s, like the old Weirdo underground comics magazine, like
I've
Robert
got a
Crumb's Weirdo.
I've got a really great copy of Love and Rockets 1 that Los
Bingo.
Bros Hernandez gave me. That
Bingo.
it's a great shape. I would
Yep.
never sell it unless I legitimately had to, partially because I know I'll never get what it's worth.
Exactly. And that's it. So that's the
Yeah.
thing. It's like having a book like that
Yeah.
that has tremendous value, but there's about 10 people who are going to know what to do with it and know that they want to spend that money on it.
Right.
And about half of them are probably going to try and get a better deal on it. You know what I mean? So like selling a store for whatever, like you would sell another conventional business for, like a liquor store or a restaurant or something like that. Like it's, you're going to get, you're probably going to get half of whatever you think you're going to get. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like that's just the nature of it. It's just because it's so hard. Like our industry is so strange. It's so different. It's so hard to find somebody who's going to come in and do it. Now, the flip side of that is there's a lot of people who really do want to open a comic shop, but they don't understand the business of comics.
Right.
So
If you find one of those,
you find one of those, great. You might be in luck, but I mean, like
yeah.
that comes with strings too. Because usually they're going to want to have you. Part of that's going to be you're going to be their consultant for a good year. You know what I mean? You're going to be working still.
Yeah.
And you're gonna be doing what none of us want to do, which is work for somebody else. You know what I mean? Like that's the thing.
Ain't none of us opened a comic shop because we were good at working for somebody else.
There you go. It's my origin story.
We talked. I only have a couple more. I know that you have a busy day, and I appreciate you.
No, you're
taking
good.
the time.
You're rolling me through. I appreciate it.
I love it. Talk to me about just kind of broader. I mean, we talked about the fact that you really only eat once a day, right?
Yeah.
Which is incredible. I'm curious.
That's gonna be the one takeaway. Like everybody who watches this, that's like nobody really talks about me anyways, which is good. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Like they're like, I don't know who that. Like, they just think I'm one of the guys setting up with the booth. You know what I mean? But that's gonna be the one takeaway. Is like, there's a guy who eats once a day. What the fuck?
Aren't you the dude who eats once a day? Yeah, exactly. Tell me about other decisions that you've made that limit the number of decisions you have to make. Right? You seem to be somebody who has systems and rules, and even systems and rules for the process of running a Steve Anderson. Right? What
Yeah.
are those systems and rule? Give me an example of a decision that you've made that limits, having to make others, if that makes sense.
Oh, man, you're gonna make me sound real crazy.
I cannot wait. Yes, I knew it. I knew it was a
Um,
gem here.
I mean, honestly, I'm gonna blame this just on the fact that so at Third Eye we have a rule basically like you probably noticed, you've known me a long time, but we age really well at Third Eye. You know what I mean? Besides the
Yeah.
white beard, I don't look a whole lot different than I did 10 or 15 years ago. Um, when you join Third Eye, that's your forever age. It's like the Lost Boys, you know. And I opened Third Eye when I was 26, so I'm going to blame this on me being stuck at the age of 26. But I pretty much have a closet of just 40 pairs of black Dickie cutoffs and a bunch of dope T-shirts. And and if I want to spice it up and try some variety, I got a bunch of different Jordans I wear. That's it. Like that's my variety. But like I don't really think about that. Like it makes it easier for me to wake up in the morning and just go. And I mean, like other than that, I mean, like I don't really drink.
Yeah.
I don't like hangovers, so I don't really drink. I do try to get to bed at a decent hour because I like to be up early. The hours between like 3:30, 4 o'clock, and like 7 a.m. are like some of the most productive for me, because that's when everything's quiet. There's not a lot of noise coming through, not a lot of emails, not a lot of phone calls. Um, you know, like that's something that I do. I mean, I get up every day around that time. It's just some nights I'm working later than I'd like to be, so I feel a little worse when I get up at that time than others. Other decisions, I mean, honestly, is just like to not get mad. Like that's probably the best one. Like I don't get mad about things, you know? Like I might get upset. I mean, you've heard me like I mean like everybody gets upset, but like I never stay mad. Like I'm never gonna hold a grudge or be one of those people like you'll never hear me complaining, you know what I mean? Like I'm just like this is the problem, this is the solution, let's move ahead. And that's what I do. You know what I mean? Like I just don't hold on to stuff.
How do you treat yourself?
How do I treat myself?
No, I mean like you're getting a special treat. Like you don't eat sugar. You don't
Yeah.
drink. I mean, those are my special treats. I'm like, oh, I did such a good job today. I'm gonna have I'm gonna have some out of the good bottle at night. Like, what is the like? You really want a treat? Like
Yeah. I mean like I said, I don't eat out often. I usually just eat at home. But if I'm feeling good about the work day and I'm feeling good about, what I'm doing or where I'm at or anything like that, like, you know, I just I like to eat in a place, and I like to like eat in a good place where I know the service is good and
yeah.
that the patronage is appreciated and that the food's good and all that. And I mean like but I'm simple, you know what I mean? Like I'd say my favorite treat is honestly like I get a few like $3 tacos and like they're banging, and that's good for me. You know what I mean? Nachos might be the treat. You know what I mean? Nachos are a little less good for you.
You're a fucking machine. All right, so two final questions, and I'm really starting to enjoy getting these answers from pretty much everybody. What if looking at putting on your Kreskin hat, or putting on not your Kreskin hat, putting on your like your insurance evaluator hat? What do you think is the biggest risk? Like the biggest riskiest thing, the thing that is looming, the axe that's swinging over the comic shops, the comics direct market. What is the biggest risk to the direct market today?
I don't know. I don't think about it.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't think about it. Like I don't anything. Like we're Third Eye. We're gonna work around it. You know? Like there's challenges.
Yep.
Like there's things that are tough. Like I mean, like the the three distributors, the data not being uniform across them, like that's probably the biggest headache. So are there labor sinks? Yes. Are there things that cost us money? Yes. But I wouldn't say it's an axe. And there's ways that you can make those things still work for you. You know what I mean? Like, it's just finding the right way to approach it.
I
I'm
think
sorry. I wish I had a better answer, but I just.
nah, man. That is the Steve Anderson answer. That's you cut different. I get it. What do you think gives you the most hope for like I mean, you just said it, right? This is what you know how to do. Everything you have all your chips to here.
Yeah.
Uh, what gives you the most hope for that? For those chips that you have piled up, in this world that you and I kind of live in.
So for the industry as a whole, not
Sure.
Third Eye, but the industry as a whole.
Yeah. I mean, I believe it. Believe me, from everything I've heard, everything I've seen, the thing that gives you hope is the systems that you have and the people that you have, and you've been developing that. I'm thinking more largely, like
Yeah.
I believe that if Steve Anderson wanted to pivot tomorrow, or Steve and Trish, I'm assuming she would have some say in this. If you wanted to pivot tomorrow, completely out of comics and just sell hip hop records, like I feel like you would probably find a way to do that. But you're staying here. You're in this space, and I can't assume it's just because you love it and because you know it. So what is it that gives you the most hope for this area?
Putting a Third Eye in every state. That's it. I want to take this shit is good. This shit is good. Like we make people happy. Like like we make people happy. We build up people. We drive people. We make things great. Customers, employees. I want to take this and I want to share it. You know what I mean? I'm not there yet, but I want to. And I think that's the thing that makes me hopeful is that this little thing that's so cool that people are like, man, Annapolis, what's in Annapolis? That's where that movie was filmed. You know what I mean? Like they don't know. You know what I mean? Why is this? What is going on in Annapolis? I want to take that feeling and I want that to be nationwide. I want everybody to be able to feel it because it's really fucking cool. You know what I mean? Like it's a really good feeling to see that kind of joy that's brought to people. And with comics as a whole, I love them. They're our primary category. I mean, comics, I moved around a lot and I didn't have a whole lot of money either when I was moving around. But you know what I could do? I could hit a quarter bend in any town I moved to. And then I could find kids that were also either they were into it or they weren't into it. And I could share that with them. I used to sell comics out my book bag. That was how I'd made friends. I'd buy those little 4 for 1 packs at the dollar store or whatever, and I would take those, and that was a hustle, man. I would break those down. I'd sell those books for 50 cents each, make myself a nice quarter. I'd load my book bag up, and I made a lot of friends doing it.
Nothing has changed. It's the same. It's the same. You're doing the same grift, man. This is wonderful. Dude, this has been wonderful. How do people find you? How do people find Third Eye?
You can find us, everything you can find for us. You go to thirdeyecomics.com. We make it real easy. From there, you can click through to all of our socials, our Twitter, our Instagram, all of that stuff. But thirdeyecomics.com. That also links through to our online store, which if you haven't tried it and you're not living close to us, you definitely should. I guarantee you, we are the fastest when it comes to getting you your stuff. We will get you your stuff safe, secure, sound. You'll love it. And the customer service is just as friendly as what you get at the stores. If you're anywhere near the East Coast or you're visiting, you should absolutely hit our flagship Annapolis store. That's the monster. That's the mothership. That's the comic shop, the game store, and the music store, all in one. It's 24,000 square feet of specialty retail, and it is it's Nerd Disneyland. And then if you're ever looking to pursue a career in comics, you should talk to Third Eye. Comics retail.
I mean, honestly, I could definitely see people, moving to Annapolis just to be close to that. If you wanted to get good at it, I absolutely would recommend it.
Yeah, wonderful. Or talk me into moving closer to them.
Oh yes, bring Steve a location in your state, and you could become a Third Eye employee. Thank you, buddy.
Thank you.
Hi again. Thanks so much for watching Comic Industry Insiders. It, as always, is our pleasure to talk to the movers and shakers of comics and to bring you those conversations. We'd love it if you'd support us with a like and subscribe, and telling your friends is always good, but really what we'd want to do is hear from you. Any questions, any suggestions you have about our show, any suggested guests, frankly, anything at all, we'd love to hear from you. Our producer is nearly always Stephanie Gerk, and our researcher is Anthony Militano, who makes me look much smarter than I am. All right, guys. Thanks so much. Namaste, y'all.